welcome to the Quintessential Comics Book Club. Ta-da! It's the June book club, and we are talking about TMNT, Bebop, and Rocksteady #1, as well as Volume 1 of Paper Girls. Yeah, and that's what you voted for on the Facebook page. Everything we discuss is put out to a vote, and those were the overwhelmingly voted books. With me here today is Ricky Lima. How you doing, Ricky?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here on such short notice. So,
good friends come through in a pinch. So yeah, we'll just get right into it. Paper Girls. It's out from IDW. It's by Brian K. Vaughan, and the art's by Cliff Chiang, and Matt Wilson did the colors. It's beautiful. I do really want to shout out to the colors, just because you can feel a lot of the mood and the scenes with that. And yeah, it's very interesting. There's a lot of mystery in it. It's very sci-fi. And I read a bunch of it when it came out in issues, and one of the things I noticed doubly when I read the collected version is like how much it screams of like 80s. It's about like these paper route in 1988, and these girls meet up to do their paper route together because it's Halloween and weird stuff happens at like 5 a.m. on Halloween. So, and then they encounter aliens or time travelers or both. And then there's a sect called the adults and the old timers, and then the teenagers, and they're like totally against each other, and it's crazy. As the book ends, you're left with so many questions.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good one.
I mean, you can't go wrong, right? Brian K. Vaughan is probably the best comic writer out there, right? So you really can't go wrong with it. And I just really like how he takes his time with the story. You know, it doesn't feel like it moves too fast. So it's really good.
Yeah, no, and especially this one, just because he takes the time getting introduced to the characters before really unraveling the story. And by the end of the first book, you're still left with like so many what if questions, but you've got sort of like a solid understanding of who the characters are, more than what's actually going on. So the characters and the setting are really hard focused. Yeah, Brian K. Vaughan's pretty much one of the best and most prolific writers who's currently writing comics. You could just say probably the best.
Yeah.
And be done with it. Yeah, so it's really good. I had a lot of people recommend this to me, and I totally get why. I wonder if he actually writes his own languages. Let me find one of the chapter breaks. Because the teenager type alien time travelers, they speak. It's sort of it looks like. It almost looks like Chinese characters. I don't know how well you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the issues, I don't know if it's got it here. Yeah, it's got it here. So in the chapter breaks in between issues, it's got sort of a message in that text. So I wonder if he actually writes out a language, like a new language, when he's doing stuff like this. So.
In the first volume, do they start talking and it's like they have like a weird grammar to it, or is that after the first trade?
So that is in the first volume. The first volume's the first 5 issues. And the ones that are all covered in bandages it looks like sort of like a Mandarin type Chinese characters. And then there's like who they call the old timers, who are on like pterodactyls and have like shiny metal armor, and they have weird old-timey speak. But in different parts of the book, they both pick up translators so they can talk to the girls. Yeah, I liked these characters. I liked getting a sense of them. The back matter in the issues was cool, but it was like, okay, it wasn't the best back matter, but just they had this whole like section about like, oh, here's your paper route, and here's how to be like a paper delivery boy, and like, oh, you don't have to be 14. You, as soon as you can read, you can start delivering papers, and just sort of like totally in that genre and in that era. One of them was like a quiz on like, what's your favorite stuff of 1988, and like listing all the movies and the TV shows and the stuff that came out that year. So yeah, it gave me a really good sense of the time and the characters. We're still figuring out more, but like even as I'm discussing with you, I realized stuff I didn't even thought I knew, because it's just so well done, well told.
Yeah. So is all that new for the trade?
So like the back matter and stuff is part of the issues. Like none of that's included in the trade. The trade is like just straight up comic, which is good. I mean,
sometimes creators will put extra content in the trades, and that kind of cheeses me off because it's like, I picked up the single issues. I don't want to pick up the trade now. But I guess it's good for people who only pick up trades, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, this one doesn't have extra stuff. I find it's actually the other way. Like, the back matter is only in the single issues.
Yeah.
So you definitely have a different feel when you're reading it issue to issue or like as a graphic novel. And with IDW, I'm not sure if it's for every book, but for this one and a lot of Image books, they don't have any ads at the beginning. Like during the comic, they just have like your 24 pages of comics and then your like 10 pages of like ads and back matter. So,
well, and they're not even like ads for like products. It's kind of other Image books, right?
Yeah. So that stuff's pretty good. So for our live viewers in the YouTube channel, there is a chat box. So if you have any comments or if you notice something that we missed, just shout out and then we can chat with you. Yeah, I mean, Paper Girls, it's by Brian K. Vaughan. Like, it's awesome. Nothing else really needs to be said. I don't know. The only thing I could say is following along sort of that same train of thought that we had with Gem and the Holograms of like, oh, these characters are so radically different in size and shape. They're a little different, but not much. They're all just sort of like cute, nice white girls. Tiffany's like, you could tell she's like maybe black or of black descent, and Max like Irish, but they look pretty similar. They all look pretty similar. But I think that could just sort of be the 80s because they're all wearing baggy clothes and they all have like weird hair. So it might not be like them like outwardly doing diversity or just like the girls themselves like trying to blend. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I like it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, and I remember
dream sequences. Dream sequences are nice.
Yeah, dream sequences are pretty sweet. I remember when it first came out because it came out for Halloween, and I was like, well, I guess this is just like a Halloween gimmick thing. And then the issues continue, and I was like, oh, maybe it's not. It just kind of just starts on Halloween. I was like, all right.
Yeah, no, it's a good jumping off point for the book. And it sort of seems like it's like a rapture type thing because like everybody disappears and then there's just these alien/time travelers. We're not quite sure, but yeah, and so like all the regular people in the village, in the town, they're in Cleveland, disappear, and they're like, why would aliens come to Cleveland? Nothing happens here. Yeah, so it's pretty good. I liked it. It wasn't the best thing ever, but it's Brian K. Vaughan, so you know more is coming. You know, not everything was explained because he's taking his time with it, and I'm cool with that. So yeah, I'm gonna be reading more. I think it's good. I would recommend this to my friends, especially if they like that slow build and they're into sort of sci-fi, action, fantasy, and like female protagonists. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
About Paper Girls?
Cool. I'm gonna move on to Bebop and Rocksteady. I know it's like tomorrow's Canada Day. Holla, shout out. So a lot of the people who wanted to join this broadcast and who voted weren't actually able to because they're at their cottages or they're on their way to their cottages or they're trying to like finish all their deadlines before they can go up to their cottages. Speaking of which, I'm available if you want to invite me to your cottage. I can cook. I know some really good drink recipes. I've got 7 expansions of Dominion. We could have a good time. Yeah,
You can come to my house, Alice, if you want.
Sweet. We could totally have a party.
Yeah.
Y'all are invited, maybe. Okay, Bebop and Rocksteady. I had the I had some tough times getting this issue because I didn't realize it's a weekly. So I was like, oh, the first one's out. I can go pick it up. But by the time I went to look for it, like a bunch were out. So they had like, oh, we have 2 and 3 and 4. And I'm like, but I need 1. And it wasn't available for purchase on Comixology or digitally on the IDW website. Don't make your comics so hard to get, man. That's just my preach into the comics industry for this year. Woo!
So you did read it though.
I did read it. I got a hold of it. Sorry, I got a comment. So I'm gonna just grab that and put it up here. Yeah, we're from Canada. We love Canada. Canada's pretty sweet. Hold on, I'll put it up so we can all chat and be like, what are you guys talking about? I'm talking about this. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that. But yeah, we were just talking about the publisher of Paper Girls. We just discussed it. It was pretty good. We liked it. We're going to talk about TMNT, Bebop, and Rocksteady Destroy Everything now, which is a TMNT spinoff, pretty obviously. So yeah, let's get the first page, and I'll put that up on screen. It's pretty epic. Oh, yeah. So, Bebop and Rocksteady are, I think this is Rocksteady and this is Bebop. They're like an ongoing character in TMNT. They often run into the turtles and they're often foiled by the turtles. Like they're off to henchman-y stuff and they hanging out with different gangs and stuff. So this is sort of a little spin-off, and they have a 5 or 6 issue miniseries. It's a lot of fun so far. I like the art. You get a bit of turtles at the beginning who go to a museum and they're like, these bones look like Bebop and Rocksteady, and that's really weird. And then they call upon their Time Master friend, because apparently they have a Time Master. I'm not caught up on TMNT, and I clearly need to be. Who's like, that's weird. Let's go figure out what's what. And, you know, you flash over to sort of where Bebop and Rocksteady are, and they were in Africa, and this gang brought them there because they were going to do stuff, but then they turned on them because they're like, yo, you keep destroying all our robots, and you're too strong, and we can't control you. And they're like, yeah, duh, you can't control us. And it's just hilarity, just total hilarity. And then they meet a version of their younger selves who aren't, like, mutants yet, and then they freak out, and that's the end of the issue. But through the turtle part, they definitely talk about how these guys are hanging out at the dawn of time. And there's this guy, Savaretti, who wants to change history and make it so the meteor never strikes the Earth to destroy the dinosaurs. So it seems like they got a really good setup for a long version story. I love this panel down here of them just being so freaked out and hugging each other. So yeah, I think it's a nice setup. I think it could be a really fun comic. But as someone who only marginally knows TMNT, I didn't get a lot of the references and what's going on. Obviously, this is very current, so I might step back from it, and then after I've caught up more, revisit it, because it just doesn't make sense unless you're a TMNT fan. But I am. I totally am. Check it
You're
out.
wearing the turtle shirt. There you go.
Turtle Power. Heroes in a half shell. That's TMNT, pretty much, right?
Yeah. So you haven't read like issue 2 or 3 or 4, I think is out?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I didn't like realize that they were all out. So and the book club's just the first issue. It's kind of interesting because you can evaluate a first issue to see if you like it, and so that's why I like doing one first issue and one graphic novel. I might actually do sort of a revisit show at the end of the summer where we revisit some of the comics we reviewed when they were just an issue and look at the full graphic novel and see if it lived up to the expectations of the first issue or if it was completely different. So that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, I think it was cute. I like the art and the writing. Like the dialogue was witty. In terms of that, like there's a lot of stuff where it's just like, oh, it wasn't like bad. When we read Scooby-Doo, I was like, I hate that. But yeah. Okay, so we got some activity in the chat, so I'm gonna screenshot that, and we can get some more consensus in on it. You guys need a musical interlude while I'm just standing here putting things up on the screen, eh? Yeah, so we got Safa and Keith in on the chat. Keith loves that last panel. You got good taste. So there's Time Lord characters from the 80s Eastman Laird comics, but yeah, it's been 20 years for people who read those like when they came out. Are you reading the current TMNT issues, Keith? Are they at all mentioned in the newer ones? Because it seems kind of an oversight if they haven't brought those characters up in 20 years, just being all like, oh man, you know these guys. These guys are super cool. But yeah, I think it's a really like it's well done, and it feels like a TMNT comic, which is good. Because if it didn't, that would be kind of lame, right? Yeah. So this is a Time Lordy character. She's cool. She seems cool.
Okay, I've seen her before. Yeah, I think they had a miniseries, Turtles in Time, recently, and she was in it.
Oh, you know what they totally did? That's on my to read list. Yeah, they did have a new Turtles in Time recently. Hey, we got more comments in the chat, so I'm just gonna bring that up, and we'll go from one thing to another. So you'll see my face for like 2 seconds, and then more comments. Ricky, I know your handle. I know your King K. Rool. I listened to your remix music under that name. So that hunk with the beard is clearly you. To quote yourself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So Keith, I think it's from the new. Well, Ricky told us it's from the new Turtles in Time. Yeah. So the new stories are pretty good. I hear. They've been really popular, which is good. I think also having the backing of like current TMNT movies is also helpful to the comics, just because it they can probably take their time with it and not have to produce as many amazing numbers every week, because it's currently being made into current movies. Doesn't matter if they're critically acclaimed or widely viewed or at all good. So yeah, that one's pretty cool, and like the new TMNT stuff is pretty good. Like this is good quality of comic. It just I didn't get a lot of the references. Yeah. Did you have any particular thoughts on this series?
Actually, I haven't read it, but it actually looks amazing. Nick Patera does the covers, and I'm like, oh yeah, all those covers are so good.
Yeah, I think they might like connect too. I'm not 100%, but like they all have the same sort of like colors and theme. So I'm wondering if they do. Also, can I just get your general opinion on like weekly miniseries?
I think they're good if you want to follow them and they're not too long. I find that monthly books I get lost in sometimes. Like I'll be reading it. Like I was just reading The Spire recently in the last issue. I had completely forgotten what happened, and I was like, "What is going on?" And like all these things are being revealed, and I was like, "What? I don't remember any of this." So I got to go back and reread that stuff, you know. But that's my fault, really. So.
Yeah, no, and like that happens to everybody. Like I have a stack of stuff. It's like, oh man, I haven't read this comic in so many months now that there's like a graphic novel of it, and I have just all the issues just waiting to be read.
Yeah.
But I've been so focused on this other series that I haven't had time to pick it up. Yeah, I don't know how successful or like how good of an idea weeklies are. I think this one works in a sense because it is a mini series, and because it seems like they had all of the art, all of the story, everything done before they put out the first issue. Just because the quality, like I've just sort of flipped through when I was at the comic shop. I flipped through what was out so far, and they all had the same sort of quality of art, which you don't see if it's rushed, which happens to some weeklies. I was burned real bad on the 52, not to be confused with the new 52, the 52 weekly series, because around issue like 30, they had used up all of their story, and they just had their ending, and they're like, okay, what do you do for the next like 10 issues? And it was just a bunch of fat.
That's brutal. So there's all these like filler issues?
Yeah, it was super rough. I didn't even like I collected a lot of them, and then I didn't even finish reading it because it was so boring. Yeah, that was like when I first got into comics, well, collecting issues. Yeah, so I think this is overall pretty good. I definitely think the people who vote in our Quintessential Comics book club polls have good taste. They know what they're talking about. And I'm gonna post the poll for next month rather soon. So if you or any of the people watching, or if you're watching later, and if it's like months later, we're still doing book club every month. You can post on the page or in the current event saying, hey, this is what we should read, and I'll add it to the poll. If the poll's already up, you can just add it yourself and vote for it, which is pretty cool. So the poll and everything like that is in our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/QCX show. This is Quintessential Comics. We're on Twitter, QCX show, and we're on YouTube as Quintessential Comics, also QCX show. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da. Yeah, I would chat with you guys forever, but I'm kind of under the weather, and I want to go get some tea. And since there are no more opinions other than Keith briefly saying that he can't commit to anything but monthlies, he wants to check out the new Batman weekly, but he doesn't want to buy monthly. Dude, I totally get you. I feel ya.
By monthly is such a scam because they're like, oh, we're going to lower our books from $3.99 to $2.99, but we're going to ship twice a month. So now they're getting more money out of you every month.
Yeah, I still want to do sort of like a subscription service. I feel like comics could learn a lot from the video game industry. They have like seasons pass you can buy if you want to support a game and you want to get all of the episodic content. to buy the season's pass, or you pre-buy the game, pre-order it, and that way they have an idea of how much money the game's gonna make. Because comics are always like, buy the comic when it comes out, and that way we can know if it's successful. You should have new benchmarks, comics. Just call me up. I will help you out. Fun little aside. Yeah, so that's it. I hope you guys have a really good weekend. I hope you enjoy Canada Day. Canada's pretty cool, but you should keep an eye on things politically because you never know what they're doing when you're not paying attention. And we'll see you next month on the Quintessential Comix Book Club. Thanks so much for joining us today, Ricky.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, and you can join in on the video discussion. Just comment on the YouTube, the Facebook events, and message me, the Alice Quinn, and we can chat about cool comics together here on Quintessential Comix.